Hello, this is a video argument for the Philosophy Multi-Phase Research Project. Since I was a child, I was passionate about the welfare of animals, and this has made me want to make some sort of a difference in regards to their well-being. It made me sad knowing how unfairly animals are treated in the intensive animal farming industry, and I felt that I was inclined to stop buying meat produce because of it. While a child, changing my diet was difficult as I lived and relied on my parents who thought that I wasn't serious about the choice of wanting to become vegetarian. However, throughout my life, the desire to become vegetarian stuck with me, and I eventually changed my lifestyle and removed meat from my diet completely. I felt like this choice changed my life for the better, as in my own way I was helping these innocent creatures. I watched a few documentaries about how poorly the agricultural animals are treated and read some articles about the vegetarian lifestyle, which motivated me to stick with my decision in becoming vegetarian. This transition influenced me to take more of an interest in my diet, and I've done some research on how the human diet have evolved throughout the ages to find out why humans actually started eating meat in the first place. There was an interesting article by Anne Gibbons of the National Geographic Society who stated that meat has played a starring role in the evolution of the human diet. Raymond Dart, who in 1924 discovered the first fossil of the human ancestor in Africa, popularized the image of our early ancestors hunting meat to survive on the African savanna. Writing in the 1950s, he described those humans as carnivorous creatures that seized living quarries by violence, battered them to death, slaking their ravenous thirsts with the hot blood of victims, and greedily devouring livid, ripened flesh. Eating meat is thought by some scientists to have been crucial to the evolution of our ancestors' larger brains about 2 million years ago. By starting to eat calorie-dense meat and marrow instead of the low-quality plant diet of apes, our direct ancestor, Homo erectus, took enough extra energy at each meal to help fuel a bigger brain. Digesting a higher quality diet and less bulky plant fiber would have allowed these humans to have much smaller guts. The energy freed up as the result of small guts could be used by the greedy brain, according to Leslie Aelia, who first proposed the idea with paleoanthropologist Peter Wheeler. The brain requires 20% of a human's energy when resting. By comparison, an ape's brain requires only 8%. This means that from the time of Homo erectus, the human body has depended on a diet of energy-dense food, especially meat. This article opened up my eyes to the evolution of the human diet. Meat has been part of our diet for centuries, and it is natural for us to crave meat. However, in the past, it was necessary for humans to consume meat as they needed energy gained from it. Although nowadays, this amount of energy is not necessarily needed, as humans are capable of adapting to many new healthy diets, and there are so many other alternatives to meat readily available to us. This leads to a question. So what are the benefits and risks of a vegetarian diet? A growing body of scientific evidence indicates, as pointed out by the article called Vegetarian Diets, Health Benefits and Associated Risks, written by Kaushik and so on, that wholesome vegetarian diets offer distinct advantages compared to diets containing meat and other foods of animal origin. It has been shown that properly applied vegetarian diet is the most effective way of reducing the body mass, expressed as BMI, improving the plasma lipid profile, and in decreasing the incidence of high arterial blood pressure, cardiovascular disease, stroke, metabolic syndrome, and atherosclerosis. In addition, improved insulin sensitivity together with lower rates of diabetes and cancer has been observed. Some studies have, however, found that vegetarian diet may result in changes adversely affecting the body. These include protein deficiency, anemia, decreased creatine content in muscles, and menstrual disruption in women who undertake increased physical activity. Some of these changes may decrease the ability for performing activities that require physical effort, Nevertheless, on balance, it can be reasonably concluded that the beneficial effects of a vegetarian diet significantly by far outweigh the adverse ones. It should be noted that the term vegetarian diet is not always clearly defined in the literature, and it may include many dietary variations. So additionally to this information, I would also like to point out that there isn't any sufficient evidence to suggest that eating meat is actually harmful to you. In fact, consuming organic meat can be beneficial to us because meat can be an integral part of the human diet, as stated by Young and so on in the Meat Science academic article, who also said, besides essential amino acids and nutritive factors of high quality and availability, meat provides components of importance for human health. Of course, the meat has to be of high nutritional value, which means of high quality. Otherwise, regularly consuming processed meat may pose health risks. So when buying meat, making sure it's of high quality is very important. To prove this, Rattel and others said in the Meat Science article that meat's chemical safety is a growing concern for the public authorities, chain stakeholders and consumers. Some meat may be contaminated by various chemical toxicants originating from the environment. Treatments of agricultural production or food processing generally found at trace levels in meat. These toxicants may harm human health during chronic exposure. So scientific research does sway in both directions when looking at whether we should include meat in our diets, and a clear answer to which diet is better for you does not exist. However, there is one thing that society can be sure of, and this has been proven. On a large scale, meat consumption is harmful to the environment. In fact, that by eating meat, you contribute to global warming, and in 3 decades, emissions related to agriculture and food production are likely to account for about half of the world's available carbon budget, as published in the Guardian newspaper titled "Eat Less Meat to Avoid Dangerous Global Warming," scientists say. Another good piece of evidence to support this has been published in the environmental magazine by Suzanne Stahl and Tim O'Rodian, pointing out that around 70% of agricultural land and 30% of the global land surface are used by animal production, though there are considerable regional variations. Livestock rearing has significant repercussions on virtually all aspects of environmental well-being. We begin with the effects on biodiversity. Nowadays, this is regarded as so extensive as to constitute 1/6 of global species lost. Biodiversity losses may be socially as well as environmentally harmful. For example, the expansion of soybean production in former rainforested areas in South America has led to widespread loss of local incomes. We then turn to climate risk. Meat production is associated with 18% of global greenhouse gas emissions, arising from methane linked to animal digestion, to deforestation of carbon-rich trees, and to the vast amounts of artificial fertilizers required to feed cattle housed in highly concentrated numbers. In addition, serious deterioration of water quality regionally is linked to the discharges of ammonia and nitrous oxides connected with intensive cattle feeding. Displacement of indigenous ways of living and disruption of long-settled property rights give rise to widespread poverty and social breakdown. What is worrisome is that the majority of people in most of the countries consume meat, and this doesn't appear to be changing. And looking at the Agricultural Outlook 2016 edition meat consumption chart, it is clearly shown that meat consumption is rising rapidly in most of the countries. This should be good evidence to support the claim of how the environment is suffering due to this. Change is necessary to reverse or slow down the effects. So I came to a conclusion that meat is not necessarily the most important part of the human diet, and especially in these modern times. It may, for some who don't have the means to remove meat from their diet, possibly for people living in undeveloped countries. However, for us with supermarkets supplying a big variety of produce, it shouldn't be a problem. It may be hard to stop eating meat if you've done so all your life, but it really all comes down to trying to protect the future of our environment. So when looking at the bigger picture, it is evident that one of the only ways we as society could contribute in order to prevent global warming, loss of biodiversity and beautiful natural habitats is by eating less meat or completely removing meat from our diet. And to me, it seems like these are for sure good enough reasons to do so. So when I was young, I wanted to stop eating meat because of different reasons to these. But once I've done some research, I realized that the advantages of becoming vegetarian or vegan actually outweigh the disadvantages for me. And for this reason, I stick with my original position for the future of our planet.